Star Farm, trip of a lifetime. Let's fucking go. Alright, I want to start this episode off with some really exciting news. It's official. Fuck Jake, I'm with Flo now. I switched my car insurance from State Farm to Progressive. My car insurance was up to $315 a month. I've been scared to find out what it was going to go up to the next time my policy renewed because they always raise it. And I just got an email that it went up to $400 a month. I had to do something about it. Every time I shop around, the rates are always mad expensive because I've been in 2 accidents recently. Before driving rideshare, it had been over 10 years since my last accident. I've been in 2 accidents in the last 2 years. And only one of them was my fault. And the one that was my fault, I hit a curb and fucked up my suspension. It wasn't like an accident with another car, but it had a few G's worth of damage, so I had to go through my insurance company. But the point is, it's been over a decade since I've been in an at-fault accident with another car, because the other accident I've been in recently, a car hit me. It wasn't my fault. But it's been over a decade since I've been in an at-fault accident with another car, so my rate shouldn't be that high. And the high rate isn't because I drive rideshare. That adds nothing to my policy because it's just gap insurance. The rideshare companies are the ones who insure me during the actual rides and the pickups. But instead of $400 a month, I got a policy for $120 a month with Progressive. I had to get rid of collision and comprehensive, though. If I got that, it would be $280 a month, which still would have saved money, but it was worth it to save $160 a month to get rid of that shit, so fingers crossed. So I just went back to Florida for Thanksgiving, and right before I went back, I went to Whole Foods to grab shit to make margaritas, and on my way out, I was like, fuck, I forgot to grab the limes. So I was thinking about killing myself, but I got together. So I go to the produce aisle, and I'm like, holy shit, I think that's Duncan Trussell over there. And I was convinced that this guy that I saw in the produce aisle was Duncan Trussell. Out of the closest people to Rogan in comedy, who is it? It's probably Tony Hinchcliffe, Tom Segura, Joey Diaz, Ari Shaffir, and Duncan Trussell. I think any of them will work as someone to build with and to try to get my shit to Rogan, because they all like rap, and I know they would all like my shit if they heard it. But if I could pick any 2 of them to get my shit to, it would be Tony Hinchcliffe and Duncan Trussell. Tony, because he has a show and he likes introducing Rogan to something that he knows he'll love, and Duncan because he's so positive, probably the most likely one out of anybody to give a random person a chance, and he's so into psychedelics. I can see him being all about the whole trip of a lifetime thing, and he'll lose his mind if he hears me on the podcast talking about my manic episodes. Plus he also likes introducing Rogan to shit. And he's so close to Rogan that he used to fucking live on his couch. He's literally the person I would want to run into on this mission to try to get to Rogan. And then these Sternworm cards are the clutchest thing in the history of the universe. I don't know if you're able to see it on there, but it's basically it's my mixtape cover, but as a little business card, but a square one. It's not a rectangular business card, because when I printed them, I didn't want them to look like business cards. But it got to the point where I just hated passing out my mixtape. I was giving it away for free, and I still felt annoying as fuck. It's gotten to a point where you're that guy if you walk around passing out your mixtape. Nobody gives a fuck about your mixtape. The inconvenience of them having to carry it around with them far outweighs their desire to listen to it, even if you're giving it to them for free. But now I just love directing people to my YouTube channel. When I started rapping, content wasn't really a thing like it is now, but if I could shine a light on what I do, the evolution of content is tailor-made for me. I love existing digitally. The purpose of rapping was always for me to bring my existence to life and an outlet to show people who I am, because I felt I was mad misperceived. It's about trying to paint the picture of Sternworm through the music, and creating content in this hybrid lane really allows for that. But I feel my music videos and now the podcast is a better representation of me than just passing out my CD anyway. So now instead of forcing my mixtape on somebody, I could just direct them to my YouTube channel, and then it's up to them whether or not to check it out. So I feel my YouTube channel is more encompassing and a better representation of myself than just a mixtape is. It's more convenient for the other person, and I feel it puts less pressure on them in the interaction. That's why I love the idea of having a YouTube channel, and that's why these cards are amazing, because they just direct you straight to my channel. I don't like to pass them out though, because I printed them right before I started the podcast, so it doesn't mention the podcast on there. But literally as I was working on this, it was Cyber Monday, so I was now's the fucking time. So I ordered new cards. I spent like $57 for 500 of them, and now they're better. They have the podcast listed on them, and these cards at the bottom of it says promo mixtape volume 2 because it's the full picture. But now this time I like enlarged the image, so now it just says Star and Worm Trip of a Lifetime on the cards. It doesn't say anything about promo mixtape, so it's better. But the non-updated cards are still really good because, like, if I didn't have the cards, I'm like, oh yeah, type Stern Worm into YouTube. Even if they wanted to, they might not remember or even really, like, understood what I said in the first place when I say Stern Worm. If, like, you don't know who I am already. Like, if I say Stern Worm and you're not familiar with me, it might not register in the person's head what I really said. It's like remembering what somebody said to you when they spoke in, like, a foreign language. But it's different when I just hand somebody the cards. No matter what their intentions are, they're gonna put it in their pocket. Even if the person I hand it to doesn't give a fuck about me, they've got to first pull it out of their pocket to throw it away. And that's worst case scenario. The best case scenario is I left a fairly good impression on them and they want to check my shit out. And if that's the case, then it's because of the cards that they're gonna likely end up going to my YouTube channel. And even if they forgot about me, they're still gonna remember later when they go into their pockets and they see the cards. The cards are essential for like a random encounter when you're trying to put somebody up in your music. Those things definitely like hold their weight in gold. So, like, I was in a Whole Foods. I think the guy that I saw was Dr. Tressel, and I know I got the cards in my car. So I quickly pay for the limes, and I run out to my car to grab the cards that I had because, like, I keep them in there for passengers who, like, ask me what brought me to Austin. I'm just like, here, take this fucking card. I do a podcast on rap. I'm trying to focus on the road over here. So I see the guy looks like Duncan in the produce aisle. I grab my limes, I go to the car, I grab the cards, and I run back into the store with the cards, nervous as fuck. I see the dude that I initially saw in the bread aisle now. I walk up to him, I was like, yo, dude, are you Duncan Tressel? He was like, yeah, I am. It was the exact energy you expect from Duncan Tressel. So I was like, yo, my name is Worm. Please do us both a favor and go to my YouTube channel. I handed him 2 of these cards. I was like, I'm the nicest rapper you'll ever meet. Check out the Message to God music video. He was like, yeah, fuck yeah, dude. And then we shook hands, and he was just like, it was nice to meet you, Worm. And I just got out of his way. And who knows, he may or may not have gone to my YouTube channel from there. But if he did, it's a wrap. And the journey that I'm on, like, if it's gonna happen for me, that's how it would happen. I forget to grab limes in Whole Foods, and then when I go back to get them, I basically run into Joe Rogan's best friend. And it's one thing to see Duncan at, like, the Mothership, but it's totally different to see him randomly in a grocery store. At, like, the Comedy Mothership, like, I feel like less bad approaching him there because it's part of the game when he's in that setting. Like, I don't want to bother him when he's just trying to live his life, but it leaves like such a more lasting impression seeing him in the grocery store. If I approach him at the Mothership, I'm just like one of hundreds of people who went up to him to say hi. I'm just like an afterthought. Whereas for like better or for worse, it's more memorable if you run up on somebody in the grocery store and you tell them you're the nicest rapper they'll ever meet. And that's a perk about being centralized in Austin. And I'm confident that I'll live up to the hype as long as he types Stern Worm into YouTube. But who knows? I think there's like a 50-50 chance that he checks my shit out. And if he does check my shit out, I think there's like at least a 50-50 chance that he shows it to Rogan. I just got to get Rogan to my YouTube channel. And that's the difference between music and content and like existing digitally. Like, I believe in myself if Rogan listens to my music, but I'm positive he'll instantly be obsessed with me if he goes to my YouTube channel. But because of Kill Tony, I'm blessed to be in a position where I'm not relying on anything to come out of this with Duncan. Like, there's no pressure on that encounter to pan out to anything. It would be amazing if Duncan does go to my YouTube channel, but just running into him and planting a seed feels like some sort of progress. Now 2 of Rogan's best friends vaguely know who I am. I just sense that I'm getting closer. It's just starting to feel like it's not if, but a matter of when Rogan goes to my YouTube channel. And it's critical that I already have the podcast in place before he does, if he does eventually go to my YouTube channel. So I ran into Duncan in Whole Foods, and then like 2 days later, I went back to Florida for Thanksgiving break. I used to drive, but the drive is just too long. It's 19 to 20 hours, which doesn't sound like too bad because it's less than a day. That's why I figured it initially. But what I've learned is 19 to 20 hours plus traffic, and then plus like a couple food stops and like mad rest area stops along the way where I'm like pondering the meaning of life. And you're flirting with 24 hours, which means you're gonna have to drive through the whole night till it gets bright outside again. So you're gonna have to watch it get dark, and then you got to push through the dark until it gets bright outside. Like, I could arrive at 3 a.m. like that's totally different. But if I'm not getting somewhere till like 6 a.m. and I was tired at 10 p.m., like, I don't like that shit. And it's cheaper to fly. It's stupid how cheap air travel has become. At a time when the cost of housing is spiraling out of control, airfares are like cheaper than ever. It's suspect how cheap air travel is. The price of a flight has literally gone down from where it was 20 years ago. I just paid $34 flying Spirit for a one-way ticket back to Florida on Thanksgiving break. You could basically get a round-trip ticket for $300 to anywhere in America these days. I feel like when I was younger, it wasn't like that. Like before the internet emerged into what it is, round-trip flights, I feel like used to be a minimum of $500, more like $1,000, and you'd have to go like AAA to book your fucking flight. The airlines are like the one corporate sector that feels like it's working in our favor opposed to against us. Flying these days is relatively cheap and convenient. So like I said, I was flying Spirit Airlines. First off, there's nothing more insufferable than a person who complains about not being allowed to bring a carry-on for free or the legroom space when they're flying Spirit. People want to pay $50 for a round-trip flight and expect to have their pillow fluffed and a 5-star dinner catered to them. I'm just happy I could fly for the same price it costs to basically check a bag. So I walk into the airport, I immediately see a check-in area where it says all gates. So I go into the line, like the roping area, and I'm walking up to the front because like the ropes extend to like well beyond past the liners. And as I'm walking up, I see the employee is letting the people in front of me out of line, and then I heard him barking, not directly at them, but about them as if they're fucking idiots. He's like, 4 check-in areas. There's 4 check-in areas, 3 of them completely empty. You guys choose to go to the most crowded one and the one that has a holdup. Like, I hate everything about this miserable sack of shit. We all just fucking walked into the airport and we went to the first check-in area that we saw. The line looked extremely reasonable, so everyone goes to it. We don't know that there's other check-in areas that have absolutely no line, and we don't know that the fucking one that we just went to has a holdup. So I hurried towards him to exit the line because like I heard what he said, and he still had like the thing, he had like pulled the rope away for them. So like I was trying to like to just like kind of like run out real quick to squeeze in behind them while he still had the roping pulled off. So I like scurry out real quick, and as I'm taking like a step out of the line, like I'm already out, 1 foot is out of the line right now. Like I'm clearly aware of the situation after I heard his spiel, and he starts barking at me, 3 empty areas, you come to this one, and I'm just walking away like, dude, I know, like I'm just fucking yelling that, walking away. But luckily I was walking away and I wasn't walking towards him, because if I'm walking towards him, then he's gonna take offense to that, and then we're gonna get into it, and I might get kicked out of the fucking airport, because that's how that shit happens, yo. Because I've been kicked out of the DMV before. I get kicked out of places, yo, because when pieces of shit like him are working and I fucking can't stand listen to them fucking abuse their power, I push back, you know what I mean? Like I don't like pieces of shit like him talking to me like that. But those are the type of people I get into within life. Like I can't help myself but push back at them. And then when we were boarding the plane, the kid who was like checking bags at the gate to like make sure like no one was bringing an extra bag on, he had like the most vicious attitude ever. I've never heard somebody as miserable as this kid. He was like yelling at anybody who had like a carry-on that they had to check. And in his defense, like it's tough being a person who checks bags at the gate for Spirit Airlines, because everybody's trash bag human beings, and everybody wants to try to bring a carry-on with them when they know they're not allowed a carry-on for Spirit Airlines. And then when he tells them, they all fucking play dumb like they don't know. Like, bitch, you fucking know. And if you don't know, then you should know, you know what I mean? And that kid probably just gets sick of watching everybody play dumb when he knows they know the rules. But he was fucking miserable. He was looking for any reason. And then at random times, like all throughout the flight, the kid behind me was literally banging on my fucking chair. Like, I don't feel like turning around and saying anything. I don't like to be that guy. But like, it didn't stop all throughout the flight. Like, it would stop for a while and then it would start back up eventually. And I don't blame the kid unless the kid was aware what he's doing. I blame the kid's piece of shit parents who don't notice that the kid's banging on the fucking chair in front of them. The parents not saying anything is what bothers me a lot more than the kid banging on my seat. Then when we were landing, babies and like little kids are crying. Like, of course babies and little kids are crying. Like, I hear a couple of different moms like getting on their kids to stop crying. Like, I don't care that the fucking baby's crying when we're landing, but again, I blame the parents, not the baby or the kid. Me personally, I struggle with my ears and like the pressure of the flight landing sometimes, and I have to push through the pain. I could only imagine how much it hurts a fucking little 2-year-old who has no clue what's going on. They're probably in excruciating pain, and they're getting yelled at by the fucking idiot who brought them in the first place to stop crying. I could imagine flying anywhere with like a 2-year-old child. Then I would say, like, out of everything that people do in life that annoys me, Standing in the aisle when the plane lands is close to the top of the list. No one's going anywhere. Stay in your fucking seat until it's time for your road to exit. They all rush to get up the second the plane lands. And because of that, if I'm bringing a carry-on, which I didn't this time, but if I was, I always get stressed out when I'm boarding because I need to find space in the overhead bins either in my row or in the rows in front of me. Otherwise, I'm going to be trapped on the plane for the rest of my life. And like when you're bringing a carry-on, you're assuming that there's room above your seat for the bag. So if you get to your row and then you see there's not room above your seat, it's too late that time to turn around and move it into one of the things in front of you because it's one-way traffic. At that time, you just got to throw it in the bins, in the overhead compartments behind your seat, and then squeeze by up into your seat, and then you're never gonna get that shit when the plane lands because everybody's fucking crowding the aisle. And like, I have a rule: when we land and we're exiting the airplane, I let everybody go in front of me or like across from me. Like any girls I let go or like any guys that are like already going, like I'll let them go if they're like parallel to me. But if your fucking seat is behind mine, I will not let you go before me, yo. I will not reward your behavior. I'm not trying to fight nobody, so I get pushed over at times. I allow it to happen because I'd rather myself get pushed over at times without walking around fighting. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to live a life where I walk around fighting. So that means I gotta get pushed over by some piece of shit that the only way to get out of this argument is to either fight him or walk away. I'll walk away, you know what I mean? But I'm not a fucking pushover in life until it comes to actually standing there and throwing hands. But if you're behind me on a flight and you're standing in the aisle, even if you're basically next to me, I won't fucking let you go before me. When it's my turn to go, I will fucking wedge my way in front of you aggressively. And it's clockwork. Every single flight, when the flight lands, half the people stand in the aisle. So the flight lands, we're waiting to get off of the plane, and this elderly lady who was like a couple rows in front of me, who's now obviously standing in the aisle, she saw like a little 4-year-old girl in like the row ahead of me. And like, she did the thing that old people do when they see a little kid that they think is cute. She was like, "Wow, your shirt is such a pretty color. Is pink your favorite color?" And then she was like, "Pink is also my favorite color." Like, old people make me want to fucking throw up. I noticed it when I was at the Cheesecake Factory. A 4-year-old child is like a fucking rock star to an old person. They gravitate to them. They love the kindergarten style dialogue. "So what's your name, young lady?" Every time I see an old person taking an interest in a little kid, I literally stand there like shucking and snarling. Like, oh. It almost makes me literally want to throw up. It's the most cringeworthy sight ever to me. 15 years from now, if that old lady's still alive and that little girl is like her server in a restaurant, if that old lady's food wasn't coming out quick enough to her standards, watch how quickly that old lady shows her true colors and turns into a barber. So the plane teleports me back to Fort Lauderdale, and my parents scoop me up and we shoot down Alligator Alley, and just like that, the kid was back at Fort Myers. Trip of Lifetime is fucking go. I mentioned on like a recent podcast episode that I dropped that I shot some video footage on my iPhone to use from a couple music videos, and like, I figured worst comes to worst, if it's unusable, we just won't use it. So when I was back in Florida, I linked up my dude Josh from EQ Recording Studio to like edit the footage. We finished both of the videos in literally 2.5 hours combined. It's stupid how good the videos look. I dropped one and I stashed one. I plan on stashing both of them. Like, I only dropped the one of them because I was so excited with how it looks that I want to put it out there as soon as possible, because I think it's like possibly my illest shit, yo. I think the Message of God music video is my illest shit, but I think this basically ties it. It's the Beam of Light music video. Check it out on YouTube if you haven't. Stern Worm, Beam of Light official music video. I think it's fucking incredible. And if Duncan sees that shit, he'll fucking lose his mind. But it's crazy, like, how I fucking shot that shit on my iPhone. Like, it looks fucking really good and shit. And it's not that I'm like talented. I'm a fucking retard. And like, Josh did an amazing job editing it and bringing it to life. And I just like love watching the music come to life through the visuals. Like, it feels so good to see it. If it's a song where I have a music video for it now, when I think of that track, I see it. You know what I mean? I don't just hear it, I see it. And like, when I was down there, I also continued the process that I had started the previous time I had been back in Florida of re-recording the actual Trip of a Lifetime album for one final time. The most recent recordings I had were from like 2015, and they sound like fucking dog shit. I can't believe I thought those horrific recordings sounded good. And ironically, at Ka-Chow and the Gang just posted a comment on one of my YouTube videos saying, I'd like to see you put some intensity into what you're doing. I'm telling you, it's a special group of people we live amongst. Just don't click on my YouTube channel. But he doesn't like my music apparently, and then before he goes, he has to leave some unsolicited constructive criticism. Maybe he thinks that he's helping me get better. I don't know what his reason for leaving the comment would be. But like, the thing is, his comment is just literally wrong. Not only was it unsolicited, but it's wrong when he says, let's see some intensity in what you do. Like, my music doesn't need more intensity. The problem with the old recordings was they were too intense. It's like I was trying too hard when I was delivering the vocals. The newer recordings are much more laid back and they sound smoother. They don't sound as intense as the other ones, but they sound more like music. But I had been known that I wasn't going to put out the album the way it sounded, and I planned on re-recording it. But like the last few years, whenever I was in the studio, I've always had other stuff on my plate, but I finally got around to it. So like now I have half the songs done. And I think they sound really good, but I also thought those last recordings sounded good, so what the fuck do I know? So like I said, I was back in Florida for Thanksgiving, and during the football games, they interview people who work for the TV station, asking them like their favorite Thanksgiving food. And this one chick goes, my grandma's sweet potato pie, but not just any sweet potato pie. It has to be my grandma's. And I'm sorry, but you've never actually tasted sweet potato pie until you've had my grandma's. Like, I believe you. Your grandma makes the best sweet potato pie ever. I don't question it for 1 second. Just leave me the fuck alone about it. And please, for the love of God, like, don't bring me a slice of it and look over my shoulder smiling as I take a bite of it. Like, so what do you think? Like, even when people are being nice, I can't stomach them. I think most people are broken as fuck and sick in their own way. A lot of people, they go into that thing because, like, when they talk about that sweet potato pie, it reminds them of their childhood. You know what I mean? It reminds them of when things were good before everything got away from them. So Thanksgiving is like a lot of people's favorite holiday, and I don't get that. Like, Thanksgiving was never really my thing growing up. I was like, how the fuck is it a holiday if I'm not getting any presents? Thanksgiving like grew on me as I got older, and for an adult, it's probably the best holiday. But the way people talk about it, they talk about like they grew up loving Thanksgiving. I think I'm experiencing life just like a lot differently than other people are. When I was younger, I just didn't feel Thanksgiving. From my experiences, it's difficult for an 8-year-old to be thankful for what they have. And when all you've ever known since your consciousness emerged is the family you have, it's easy to take them for granted. People passing away or geographic distance between you and your loved ones, I think, is what builds somebody's appreciation for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving has definitely grown on me, but it's not something I was into as a kid. When you question why somebody is the way they are, you gotta understand what their reality was when their consciousness emerged. What we're subjected to as we first start becoming conscious really shapes how we see the world, in my opinion. And when my consciousness was emerging, it felt like Thanksgiving was just an obligation I had to get through. It meant we had to dress up and get dragged somewhere, and we had to basically fake it. And that's what I always associate with Thanksgiving. I'd always get like a lecture how I had to be on my best behavior. Like, this is a very important day. Don't act up and embarrass us. And I'd be like, embarrass you in front of who? Like, it's just us, grandma and grandpa. And like, back then, I thought my family just takes Thanksgiving mad seriously. Specifically my mom, because it's her parents that we would do Thanksgiving with. But I've come to find out that it's the exact opposite. I'm blessed to have a family that doesn't make a big deal at all about Thanksgiving. What I thought was a big deal was absolutely nothing compared to what happens in other people's households. But growing up, Thanksgiving was always, like I said, something I just had to get through. And every year we would go to a buffet. It was me, my brother, my parents, and my grandparents. And those specific grandparents were literally at my house like every single day. So it just seems like such a farce to make such a fuss over this one meal. It's like we're always with each other, and now for this one day we dress up and make a big deal of everything. It just seems so extra and over the top to me. And I was never like overly excited about the buffet itself. It was alright, but like a meal revolving around turkey when I was younger, it didn't do it for me. And I definitely like Thanksgiving food more now. Like, I look forward to the Thanksgiving meal now, but not when I was a kid. And my grandparents would always like berate me for not finishing everything that I took on my plate. Like, I'd take like this full ass plate and I'd eat like a tenth of it and push it to the side, and then I'd go get a fresh one. And like I said, everything is about what your reality is when your consciousness emerged. And my grandparents are senior citizens whose consciousness basically emerged during the Great Depression, like at least around the time frame. I'm not sure the exact years, while I was an 8-year-old sternworm brought to an all-you-could-eat buffet in the 90s. I didn't know any better. And I see like the culture of waste that happens in those places. And before we went in, my pops would always tell me to make sure I get my money's worth. I love buffets growing up. The Thanksgiving buffet was literally like the only one I didn't like. And like going along with the theme of Thanksgiving and how I'm experiencing life differently than other people, 2 friends of mine that are married, like it's a guy and a girl. It's not one of those queer marriages, but they brought their kids to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. And my friend, like the mom, she posted the pictures on Facebook and it was like captioned like, what a special day. And I think that's amazing. Like that's life right there. I think there's nothing you could do more productive than doing family activities like that. In no way am I laughing at her. I'm laughing at how differently I'm experiencing life than other people. I'd rather fucking kill myself than do that. And they probably have like the time of their lives. I don't get what anybody likes about parades. I think parades are possibly the stupidest shit in the history of the universe. I guess like the big floats look cool to like really young kids, like 3-year-old kids. But if you ask an adult what they like about a parade other than seeing my kids enjoy the big floats, I don't know what the answer would be. It's not like you open your door and outside is the parade. You gotta fucking go through the hassle of getting into the city on Thanksgiving in the bitter cold with millions of people crowding the streets. Like it sounds like the worst time ever. If I had kids, I'd be down to do it for the kids, but I wouldn't want to do it. And that's what's ironic. As like a dad, I'd be doing it for the kids. And as a kid, if the plans for Thanksgiving were to go into the city for the Thanksgiving Day parade, I would have said, I'm not going. If you guys want to go, just go without me. And I was the kid who cursed off his parents. People wonder how someone could do such a thing. Well, the process of forcing me to go to the Thanksgiving Day parade in New York City would ignite a reaction like, fuck you, I'm not going. You got to fucking drag me out of this house. And that was the reaction when I was probably like 8 years old. But the point is, the way I'm experiencing life, as a kid, I'd have to do the Thanksgiving Day parade for my parents. And as a parent, the only reason I would do it is for the kid, while everybody else is out here having fun at the parades as a kid, and then they have even more fun when they get to relive the experience with their children. And if I were to ever have kids, which probably isn't ever going to happen, I'd expect them to be like a lot more like me than a normal person. I don't exactly see a little stern where I'm excited to go to a parade. I'd probably have to agree to pay that little shitbag $100 if he promised to just go with us and behave the whole day. There's videos of families online doing TikTok dances together. If you do a TikTok dance with your parents, you're experiencing life totally differently than I am. So my current Thanksgiving dinner has dwindled down to just me and my parents. And since it's just the 3 of us, when I was living in Jersey and they were in Florida, the first couple years, I didn't even fly down to them for Thanksgiving. It wasn't like that big of a deal to any of us. And because of the holidays, the surrounding days at work were blocked off, like at the Cheesecake Factory. So I couldn't request off. I don't doubt the GM would have made an exception for me. Like they definitely would have made an exception for me. But I just hate asking people for special accommodations. And then it's a pain in the ass for whoever's like making the schedule, because like it's not gonna pop up when they're actually making the schedule like most request off days do. So then they have to like just remember it. So it's just like a big headache if you need off on a day that's blocked off at work. So because of that, I did a couple Thanksgivings by myself in Jersey, and I didn't realize what it was at first. But when people ask you what you're doing for Thanksgiving and you say nothing, I'm just watching the games, they pity you. They feel bad that you're gonna be alone for the holidays. A few people like invited me to their Thanksgiving dinners. I'm like, I'm not about to intrude on you and your family. Some lady I work with invited me to her dinner, which was very nice of her. But I'm so sure I'm about to go to someone's Thanksgiving dinner where I'm introducing myself to everybody. They'd be like, so how do you know such and such? And I'd be like, oh yeah, we worked together at the Cheesecake Factory. It was nice of her to invite me, but it just turned into me feeling bad saying no, when she's actually just inviting me to be nice. I just don't understand what she thinks. Like, does she think I'm so fucking lonely that I'd rather spend Thanksgiving with some random family than just be by myself? And if I was sad because I was going to be by myself for the holidays, does she think spending it with some random family is going to make me feel better? I could see when I get older, like if I'm just by myself, how Thanksgiving could get kind of sad. But like at my age right now, I don't give a fuck about that shit. In fact, it was the opposite. I was more excited than ever for Thanksgiving. Instead of Thanksgiving meaning some sort of obligation, that year it meant the exact opposite. It meant a day with no responsibilities. And I like to bet on sports, and Thanksgiving has become like my favorite day to bet on games. I used to have like $5,000 pending on Thanksgiving every single year. So I was always looking forward to it. Like, hell yeah, I got the day to myself. I'm just going to smoke and have action on the games all day. Like, could life get any better? But one of my best friends invited me to his house one year, and I'm mad close with his family, so I wasn't about to say no to them. And I love this kid's family, and I don't want to say anything negative about them, but it just highlights why I like to be by myself. Because when I'm by myself, I could do whatever the fuck I want. My friend's mom is like mad into checking people's eyes when they come into the house to see if they look high, and she won't hesitate to call you out on it. She does like eye checks when you walk in, and she's like, come here, let me see your eyes. And then she'd be like, how come they look so red? And I just want to be like, they look red because I just smoked a blunt, but obviously, like, I'm not allowed to say that. People think I'd rather go through that on Thanksgiving than be by myself. I smoke before I go everywhere. So if it's going to offend you that I smoke before I come by, then it's best for me just to not come over. Even if I genuinely love you, I don't want to be around somebody who gives me a hard time about smoking trees. I smoke trees, and I don't have to lie about it to anybody except my employer and the cops. And I don't think she said anything about the trees that time when I went over for Thanksgiving, but it just highlights how I had that awkward feeling when I go over there. So it's like, would I rather go through that or just chill in the comfort of my own apartment, smoking trees, watching my bets? And another thing is, I had a lot of money on the games that year, I remember. And even though there was a TV and perfect view of where I was sitting when I was eating, I wouldn't even dare to ask them if I could put the game on and keep it muted. Like, that's not even an option. And now that's just me and my parents doing Thanksgiving in their apartment. We literally ate on snack tables in the living room this year as we watched the Detroit game. And we don't wait. Like, we wake up and my parents just start working and everything. I'm ripping the bong in my room until my pops yells to me that the food's ready. And then we're done eating by 2 o'clock at the latest. I wore a beat up tee and gym shorts this year, and I was like overdressed compared to my pops. Here's a microcosm of what my Thanksgiving experience is like. This year we got pecan pie, and I knew I was going to be the only one eating it. So the night before Thanksgiving, I asked my pops if I could have a slice. Like, anybody listening to this would be shocked that I even asked such a question. But my pops was confused. He was like, what do you mean, can you have a slice? I was like, do you care if I take a slice before Thanksgiving? And he was puzzled. He was like, why would I care? I was like, I don't know. I don't know why I thought that. And like I said, I was one of the kids who grew up cursing at his parents. And here's an example of how that happens with a little story of something that happened when I was back in Florida. Before I went to the studio, I was having troubles with my USB drive. I would like click on the file and it said file not found. So like I was getting frustrated with it. And I asked my mom to use her computer. She has a PC. I haven't touched a PC in forever. I put the USB drive in and it doesn't instantly pop up like it does with my Mac. I tried to search tab, but it brings me to an internet search. Like, the computer search tab kept bringing me to a fucking internet search. And then I was looking for like my computer, but I couldn't find that anywhere. I'm like, where the fuck is this drive? Like, how the fuck do I get this shit? So I asked my mom. I was like, I just put a USB drive into your computer. How do I get to it? And she doesn't know what the fuck a USB drive is. So now I'm getting increasingly frustrated. And I'm sitting there for a while, like, struggling with it. And then eventually my mom says to me, we have a Geek Squad membership. Why don't you just call them? And all she's trying to do is help, but I don't give a fuck who you are. If you tell me to call up Geek Squad to find out how to open up a USB drive, you're getting cursed the fuck off. And then one thing that happened while I was back in Florida, I linked up with my one friend to go out to eat. We walk into the restaurant right before another couple. We wait at the please wait to be seated sign. The girl who works there comes up to the front, walks right past us, and asks the couple behind us that walked in after us how many. And the guy says 4. And it was nothing but a natural instinct. I was like, oh, we were here first. And the girl was like, kind of in a condescending tone, oh, she'll be right with you. And I was like, oh, but we were here first. And she goes, she'll be right with you. And I was like, but I'm telling you, we came in before them. And I'm looking at the guy like, speak the fuck up. That's what I mainly have a problem with here. How do you watch two people walk into a restaurant right before you? You stand in line behind them. You get greeted before they do. And you don't acknowledge that these other people are before you. This fucking idiot standing there smiling, either playing stupid like he doesn't know what's going on, or he actually is fucking retarded and didn't realize what was going on. And it was like an older Indian guy, and it was an Indian restaurant. So I felt like he was getting preferential treatment. And like the whole fucking situation was mad annoying. But I'm giving the girl the benefit of the doubt and assumed that I must have been standing in the wrong spot. I literally stood right in front of the sign saying, please wait to be seated, but maybe it's technically not where the line would start and the other guy was in the correct position. So I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, but even so, it felt like I was communicating with somebody who isn't a fully functioning human being. Everybody always bitches that the kids today have no respect respect. They did that when I was younger, and now people my age do it with kids today. If you walk around bitching that kids have no respect, you're absolutely insufferable. And if kids are disrespectful to you, it's probably in response to something that you're doing. When I'm in a customer service role, for the most part, I talk to kids the same way I do adults, and I've literally never had an incident with the kid in that like 21-year-old age bracket or lower, except like in response to like maybe they didn't tip me, and then I give an attitude, and I got into it with a couple kids a couple different times when I was serving tables. Like, I would never do that driving rideshare. But other than that, I've literally never gotten into it with the kid. I've never had like a kid be rude to me when I was serving them, like in terms of like how they talk to me. I've never thought like, damn, this kid has no respect. And what I've noticed is, if anything, I think kids 21 years old or younger, like in that age bracket, will possibly talk to you more respectfully than anybody else, because they're always having it drilled into their heads to be respectful to everybody. So I think most kids have common courtesy when they're dealing with adults, unless they're provoked. Entitled piece of shit adults are the people who I've always found to have the most problems with, because they're allowed to talk to people however the fuck they want, and most people are miserable as fuck and looking for anybody to take their anger out on. If we're talking about people lacking respect, kids aren't the problem, but when somebody does get disrespected by a kid, it's more noticeable, and their response is, oh, kids say I have no respect, when the truth is they're probably the ones who are disrespectful, so the kid just reflected it back to them. And I bet you there's people who complain today that kids have no respect, and if you ask them to cite an incident where a kid disrespected them, they probably couldn't even do it. But so I disagree with the rhetoric that kids say are disrespectful, but I look at some kids say, like, I don't know how the fuck that kid's gonna make it through life. And I've communicated with people of all ages that I think I don't know how they get through life. But when you're talking about teenage girls, it's shocking sometimes how these girls are literally like a shell of a person. They can't even communicate like a real human being. I think there's a lot of mental coddling going on that's happening with parents and their daughters these days. I think everybody thinks the world is fucked up, and they just want to treat their daughter like the little princess and like just coddle her and give her the world. I once served a girl who looked old enough to drink, and she would whisper in her mom's ear anything she needed to say to me. I would ask her a question like, how would you like your burger cooked? And she would whisper in her mom's ear, and then her mom would answer for her. And the parents are enabling it by doing that. And when I drive rideshare, I instantly fucking hate your guts if when I arrive, you walk up to the car and you just stand next to the door. They know I'm their driver, so they walked up to the car, but instead of getting in, they just fucking stand next to it. This is a retarded move that a girl in her lower 20s or younger is exponentially more likely to do. They're the only ones that really do it. It's like they haven't gotten the memo that when a cab driver comes to pick you up, you just get the fuck in the car. And the girl at the restaurant who greeted the other people first kind of reminded me of that. And then it got like mad uncomfortable because that girl was our server. I was just like mad polite to her the whole meal because I wasn't like looking to start shit. And then it was like the worst service I've ever gotten in my life. It was literally laughable. Me and my friend were cracking up. I got my entree before the appetizer came out. My entree just randomly came out by itself. It was a chicken dish in a chili sauce with peppers and onions, but for some reason it was an appetizer. So I ordered it as my meal, but is it shocking that it came out before the meal by itself with this other girl serving us? Like, people don't want universal basic income because they want everybody working, when we should introduce universal basic income so we could just give people like that girl money and we don't need her in the workforce. But the final point of that initial incident is, if this was videotaped, I'm the one who looks ridiculous. I look like a disgruntled, impatient customer, but I walked into a restaurant and the people walked in after me got greeted first, so my instinct was to say something. And then when I spoke up, she gives me a dumbass response, and now I'm all hyped, and now it just becomes about the principle of the matter. But if I could go back, I would just never even said anything in the first place, because I'm just not trying to get into it with people. If I knew it was going to start a fuss, I would just sucked it up, but once I said something, it was too late. And then we did end up getting sat like 2 seconds later, so I looked extra ridiculous. And then my mom doesn't have her driver's license, and she asked me to bring her to Sam's Club like an hour before I was leaving for my flight back to Austin. Another instance of how somebody ends up cursing off their mom. I was like, I'm not fucking bringing you anywhere right now. And then she was about to walk there, and it's over a mile, so I was like, fuck it, I'll just bring you. I was out of weed anyway, which was like a major miscalculation, like a terrible inconvenience. I only ran out for like the 2 hours before my flight, but that's when it's most critical because it's important to binge rip the bong before I leave for any flight. I gotta be as high as humanly possible. But without weed, I was essentially just sitting there staring at the wall anyway until I left for the airport. That's why I was like, fuck it, I'll just fucking take you. So we got to Sam's Club right when it opened, and there was like 50 people lined up waiting outside to get in. And it annoyed me because you got to show your card when you walk into Sam's Club. So I was thinking, I'm never fucking getting out of here. Like, this is where it's going to happen. I'm going to die in this fucking parking lot. But it's disturbing how many people have to be at Sam's Club the second it opens. Like, we were only doing it because I was leaving for a flight. I could never imagine living a life where I line up at a grocery store or a wholesale club waiting for them to open up the doors in the morning. So my pops dropped me off at the Fort Lauderdale airport. I get through security in no time, but my flight kept getting delayed. Like right as I was starting to get kind of worried, I heard some guy near me talking, saying that there was an issue with the plane and there's a good chance the flight's going to get canceled. So I was thinking, fuck, yo, I got no more weed at my parents' house. I really don't feel like being stuck in Florida for an extra night without weed. So the guy that was talking about the flight possibly getting canceled was all disgruntled. He was like, they're not going to put us up in a hotel. And I will say, like, if you're on vacation and your flight gets canceled, it's a major inconvenience to be stuck an extra night. And the airline should have arrangements with hotels for those types of circumstances. But what bothers me is people's shitty ass fucking attitudes. They talk about the delays like the airline is doing it intentionally. There's not one person who works for that airline who wants this flight to be delayed or canceled. If there's an issue with the plane, what do you want them to do? Fly a potentially unsafe plane? And it was a Spirit flight, and we all know Spirit flights are dirt cheap, and these people probably paid $100 for a round trip on a holiday weekend. I'm just thankful for how cheap and convenient air travel is, and I'm hesitant to complain about it, even when I am getting aggravated by the situation. But I've had way too many smooth flights to flip out because my departure time keeps getting pushed back and might get canceled. I've had one flight canceled in my life because of snow. Like, I'm running good enough to have one flight go against me. But like as we're waiting, you hear mad chatter in the waiting area. People like, this is ridiculous. Like everybody was saying that shit. It's a shitty situation, but there was nothing ridiculous happening. The only thing that was ridiculous was people's attitudes. So there was a never-ending line at the customer service desk at the gate. And I'm worried that everyone knows something that I don't, and they're just getting ahead of rescheduling their flight. Because I'm thinking, what else would they be going up there to discuss unless they're rescheduling the flight because they know it's going to get canceled? But apparently no one knew anything because a few minutes later, the girl working at the desk made an announcement over the loudspeaker with a disgruntled tone saying, don't come up to the desk to find out if the flight's canceled. As of now, it's not canceled. And as soon as we know anything, we'll let you know. So stop coming up to the desk if that's what you're going to ask. And I'm on her side. Like, I figured there's no reason to go up to the desk for information because the second there's any updates, they're going to announce it and post it on the screen like they've been doing. And you know everybody that goes up there with the shitty ass fucking attitude anyway when they talk to them. They have a right to be mad about the situation, but not the people who are simply doing their jobs who have absolutely nothing to do with the delays. But the employees are the only ones for these people to take their anger out on. They're ungrateful pieces of shit. Ironically, on Thanksgiving weekend, they should be thankful for how cheap and relatively convenient air travel is and understand that unforeseen issues arrive when dealing with aircrafts. So eventually we ended up getting a new plane. The flight wasn't canceled and they just changed gates for us. I'm struggling walking, which I've talked about on unreleased episodes, and literally, like, when I was at the airport, I had an epiphany. I'm about to go see a neurologist. I think my issue stems from my spine or my nervous system. I've had a million people start unsolicited conversations with me about my walking, and no one's ever suggested go see a neurologist. But of course, I'm struggling walking, and apparently Fort Lauderdale Airport's the biggest airport in the history of the universe. So I limp my way over to the new gate, and I'm waiting to board, and I hear some dude behind me like, you dropped on the floor? Come on, man. That's like $5. At first, I thought it was somebody fucking around with their friend, but then I realized it was a dad yelling at his child. And then he continued to berate the kid for dropping whatever the kid dropped. Like, I fucking hate that shit. $5 isn't shit to an adult, but $5 feels like everything to like a little kid. So when the dad makes a big deal about it, it just makes the kid feel worse about the situation, and he thinks it's a bigger deal than it actually is. And if you have a clumsy kid, that just means that you're probably clumsy. I bet this dude was dropping mad shit when he was younger, and I wouldn't be shocked if that dude's response to that would be like, yeah, I did drop stuff when I was younger, and my parents yelled at me about it. And my response to that is people wonder where mental illness stems from in America these days. So the flight's quickly boarding, and like the line never fully dissipates, and eventually they announce final boarding call. So I get up, and instantly I like anybody else who gets up at the same time, because that means when they heard their group announced, they didn't run to the fucking line. When I did comedy open mics, when they would put down the sign up sheet, that I would run to, because where you signed up matters. You want a relatively early spot, and you might not even get a spot if you sign up too late. But when you're flying, your seat is predetermined. There's no rush to get on the plane. You're not getting to the destination any quicker. It just means it's going to be a longer time that you guys sit on the plane before takeoff. But these sick people hear their group and they just run to the line. So I'm getting into line, and there's a kid walking up at the same time as me, and as I'm thinking he must be a normal human being, he gets behind me in line and instantly starts complaining to me about the flight delay. I just want to be like, yo, just miss me with that shit, dude. So now I'm sitting on the plane waiting for it to take off, and I get a text message, a $7 meal voucher from Spirit Airlines. Like, I understand delays happen, and I'm not blaming the airline, and I'm actually happy that we're back on track. But a $7 meal voucher is borderline offensive. If that's your way to make things right, don't even bother, because you're just making it worse. So as I received the voucher, the kid sitting next to me, this is a different kid. The other kid was just a kid in line. This is the kid sitting next to me. As I get the voucher, the kid starts laughing. And I smiled because I knew what he was laughing at. He must have also received the same voucher I did. So he sees me crack a smile, and he looks over. He was like, you see what they gave us? A $7 meal voucher. So I was like, honestly, I didn't even know they had meals on these flights. I said it half joking, half serious, and I was in the middle seat. And then the kid on the other side of me was like, it's probably like Cheez-Its, which I thought was funny, and it highlights something I talk about within stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy works as an art form, and a lot of people are hilarious doing stand-up, but it's not the essence of humor. Real life moments and the jokes that spawn from it get me laughing more than stand-up comedy does. So the first kid sitting next to me that I mentioned, it didn't bother me that he randomly started talking to me because like the situation called for it. I actually didn't mind him, but then he just kept complaining about everything. I hit him with the, yeah, I feel you, a bunch of times, but like I was getting exhausted from it. He was complaining that we were just sitting there and not taking off. I'm thinking, I bet there's a reason that we're just sitting here and not taking off. And then he goes, they could have warned us before we came to the airport that there was going to be a 3-hour delay. But I think they literally could not have warned us that there was going to be a delay, because I don't think they knew about it. It seems pretty universal that when airlines know there's going to be a delay, they update the departure times online as soon as they know. This delay was unexpected. It's what people choose to complain about that bothers me. Then when we're about to take off, the flight attendant politely like went around the cabin saying tray tables up and large electronics stowed away. And I hear one guy bark back her, I'm allowed to keep mine down. Like, these people are absolute filth, and nobody hates somebody telling them what to do more than I do, and nobody pushes back against somebody overstepping their bounds more than I do. But that's standard procedure for a flight attendant to walk up and down the aisle saying that verbatim before a flight takes off. She was literally just doing her job. And it's one thing if she like singled this guy out, like, excuse me, sir, please put up your tray. But that's not what happened. She was just openly saying it, and she walked right past his row when she said it. He could have just left it down without saying anything. She wasn't like going to go back and single him out specifically. And like, I wonder what mental illness this guy claims to suffer from that affords him special privileges for him to keep his tray table down in the first place. And like, if the tray tables are there, then you have a right to put them down. Just like if the seat reclines, you have a right to put it back. But me personally, on a Spirit flight, I wouldn't even put my tray table down out of respect to the people around me because the room is so tight. It's like crazy how tight the room is on Spirit airline flights. You don't even have enough space to even really use a laptop on those flights. But it's nothing to complain about because that's what comes with the turf for paying $34 for a flight. And then when a different flight attendant was doing like the pre-flight announcements, she was like, in no time we'll be on our way to Honolulu. No, I'm just joking. We're going to Austin. And it just reminded me of my line on Message to God. When I started off, I say, I'm still here surviving through the bleakest nights. Couldn't get away, even with the cheapest flights. Because that's what I've learned in life. Like, if you want to get away from yourself or the life that you've set up, you can't expect to do it by changing your geographic location. If life sucks for you in Jersey, then it's going to suck for you in Honolulu, Hawaii, or no matter where the fuck you are. Like, you can't get away from it. So shortly after we received the text message with the $7 meal voucher, you could see everybody on the flight like deeply studying the brochure listing the food choices. And they eventually, during the flight, when they came up to our row with the food cart, the kid next to me asked, am I able to get anything on here for under $7? And the flight attendant was like, no, that's not good for this food. You were supposed to use that $7 in the airport while you waited. And I chose not to get into it with the flight attendant because I bite my tongue when I can. And it wasn't like she was talking to me directly. She was talking to the kid next to me. But I didn't like that shit. Like, I didn't like her choice of wording. And I want to say something like, oh yeah, if we were supposed to use it in the airport, then why the fuck did we not receive it until after we boarded the flight? Like, I've worked in customer service for mad long. I don't say things like you were supposed to unless I know the customer's wrong and they're coming at me on some bullshit. Otherwise, even if I know they're wrong, as long as they're being polite to me, I'll try to use more neutral words so I'm not like blaming them for fucking up. It's like she's igniting conflict through her language. Like, I bet that girl constantly has drama in her personal life. Then a few minutes before the plane lands, the male flight attendant has an announcement to make. He starts giving a weak ass pitch for a Spirit Airlines credit card. Fucking spare me. Spare me with your prepared speech and cheap ass jokes. You know we're all on a 3-hour delay. Most of the people on that flight hate Spirit Airlines at that point, and everyone's going to call up customer service demanding airline credit anyway, so nobody even needs the fucking airline miles that he's pitching. If I was a flight attendant, which actually is my dream job, if the plane was on a long delay and everyone was salty as fuck at the airline, I just wouldn't do the credit card pitch at the end. But nothing says America in 2023 like a plane full of people who paid $90 for a round-trip flight complaining about a 3-hour delay after celebrating a holiday about being thankful and gracious, and then getting a sales pitch at the end for a credit card offering a reward bonus if you sign up. And I'm in the middle of my second bankruptcy. I don't think I'll get approved for that credit card. And nobody even needs to waste their time calling up Spirit Airlines demanding their money back. The kid next to me told me he had already gotten $50 back and he only paid $90 for the round trip flight. And I was thinking, I wonder what that conversation sounded like when he got refunded. But then when the flight landed, he was like, they just sent me another $50 voucher. I was like, did you speak to them directly or they just sending this to all of us? And he was like, nah, I didn't speak to anybody. They just must be sending this to everyone on the flight. Check your email. And it was so fucking clutch that this kid said that because I did get 2 emails, but they didn't say anything in the subject about a flight credit. It just says sorry for the delays, and I don't click on like half my emails. If he didn't say anything, I would have never thought twice about clicking on those emails. I wouldn't have realized that there was a flight credit inside. And if by chance I had clicked on it without him saying anything, I would just assumed it was the same email sent twice. But he said it was 2 separate $50 credits. So I checked the last 4 digits of the number and they were the same on both emails. But the kid seemed pretty sure that they were 2 separate credits. So I checked the first 4 digits of the number and they were different. And the point is, if he didn't say anything, I would have never realized that there was 2 separate flight credits. I would just assume it was the same one if I had made it that far. But a $100 flight credit for a 3-hour delay is not bad, plus a $7 meal voucher, which unfortunately already expired. It expired as soon as they gave it to us. And that flight credit matches what most people probably paid for the flight, and you know any broke-ass motherfucker flying Spirit Airlines is excited to get that credit back. I saw the situation as a net profit. It was like a come up. I had to sit in the airport for 3 hours to receive a $100 flight credit. Good thing I wasn't whining. And that's what it is. Everybody made such a big fuss about the delay that only ended up lasting 3 hours. Meanwhile, they got back more than they bargained for. And they would have gotten it if they never made a big deal in the first place. And that's what used to happen to me when I was younger. A lot of time I would whine when I didn't get what I want, but then I'd end up getting what I wanted. But it wasn't because I was whining, and then I would just feel immature, like, damn, I probably should just stay quiet the whole time. But like I said, every single flight, people clogged the aisles, went lands. And as it was getting close to my row, as the people in front were getting off the flight, I was thinking, I will fucking hip check an old lady. And of course, it wasn't an old lady. It was a black kid who was the person that had to cut off, and he was pressing mad hard. The kid who sat next to me was standing in front of him, and there was no space between the two of them. But after the kid that sat next to me went, I just jammed my way into the aisle, and I viciously cut this kid off. I didn't step on his shoe, but my shoe grazed his, and I know he noticed that. But don't cram the fucking aisle, and you won't have people stepping on your fucking shoes. And then during the delay, what I was worried about was it was gonna get delayed mad long, and by the time we got back to Austin, none of the buses would be running, and I had to take like a ride share, which might be like $100 at that time coming back from the airport. But we got back at like a reasonable time. We got back at like 9:30. Got off the plane. Took the 20 bus back to 8th and Lavaca, took the 4 back home, and there's nothing more to the story than that. Trip of a lifetime, let's fucking go. And then just like a couple last things real quick. There's an open investigation into the professional basketball player Josh Giddey. I believe the allegations are statutory rape. He might have had sex with the minor. Let me put this in perspective. Josh Giddey just turned 21 in October. It's on his Wikipedia. The girl that's involved in the situation is said to be a junior in high school. That means she's in that 16 to 17-year-old age range. He's literally 3.5 years older than her, and the media covers this like it's a real story. And I don't know if it's true, but I heard that he met her in a club, which you'd have to be 21 to get into. And the sick people that we live amongst will call him a child molester. You know the world is backwards when the laws are a fucking joke. And then to close out, I just got an email from Recuro Health with the subject, "Don't let holiday stress control your well-being." And when I was reading it, I literally couldn't tell if it was a joke or not. Because of the acronym of the disorder, I actually thought it was a joke. It seemed like some SNL shit. So what they wrote in the email, this is verbatim. I typed it up on here. "As the season changes, many people experience shifts in mood. But for some, these changes can be more serious, affecting thoughts, feelings, and behavior. This condition is also known as seasonal affective disorder." And then in parentheses, it says SAD. That's the acronym, SAD, for seasonal affective disorder. And that's why I thought it was a joke, because the acronym is SAD. And then back to the quote. "If you are away from friends and family, feeling alone or emotionally drained during the holidays, there is hope. Thankfully, Recuro Health's psychiatrists and therapists offer support for individuals dealing with these types of emotional challenges. Book an appointment today with one of our behavioral health professionals to help you navigate through the challenging negative seasonal thoughts." And then underneath it says booking appointments. The mental health care industry is an absolute fucking crock of shit. It's a business that feeds off of the unhappiness created by our way of life and people not getting what they want out of their life. And that's it. Star Trip of a Lifetime. Let's fucking go.